Guys, it's Tish from Cotton Candy Quilts in lovely scenic Muncie, Indiana, and today we'll be doing nesting baskets. Oh my gosh, these are so cute and they are really easy to do. Once you get the process down, you'll be able to whip through them very quickly. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get to it. Okay guys, I have everything cut and laid out as you should too, so that it goes together. And the first thing we're going to do is make the body of the basket. And if you notice, this is not quilted, nor will it be at the end. So don't quilt your fabric first. And what I'm doing is taking the basket piece and the basket piece of the Soft and Stable and layering them. I probably flipped that right in front of your nose, so sorry. So that it is centered in the middle. There should be about 1/2 inch on both sides of your fabric. And then I'm going to use the Wonder Clips to clip it down so that I can sew it. And we're going to sew on both long sides. I would not give up my Wonder Clips, I am just saying. I use them for everything, including binding, to hold it down while I'm stitching, and for things that are difficult to hold with pins, or sometimes if I'm just in a hurry. So we're going to sew down the long side with the fabric up and the Soft and Stable down on each long side at about 1/8 of an inch. It doesn't matter if you're exactly at 1/8, just be less than 1/4 because you don't want your stitching to show when you're done. So I'm going to sew that and I'll be right back. Okay, now I have this sewn on the top and the bottom here, and now we need to mark the place for our label holders if you're going to put in the label holders. This is the medium nesting basket, so the instructions say to come over 11 inches and mark a 4-inch line. And I am using my trusty Chaco marker, which I use for about everything that's dark. Friction on light and Chaco on dark. So I'm coming in 11 inches from the other end. And I'm marking a 4-inch line. And then it says to come up 1.25 inches from the bottom and mark a line across here. Easy enough, right? Okay, so now we're going to attach our little pocket, and if you notice, the edge of the pocket goes right over those lines. They'll brush off when we're done. Don't pin through the plastic, because if you pin through the plastic it will leave holes. So I'm just lining it up and holding it. I'm going to slide it underneath my machine. And I'm going to sew right on the lines. Doing a little locking stitch there at the beginning, and then off we go. Best to use a metal foot when you're working with vinyl because plastic feet get stuck. If you only have a plastic foot option, then you should probably put a little piece of tape on the bottom so that it doesn't do that. And I'm keeping the plastic nice and flat there. So the plastic does extend over the lines just slightly. I'm going to trim my threads. If you notice, my thread is in purple. My baskets are purple and green, and I wanted to use a contrasting thread there. Yeah, there was another thread. So there's that. And then we want to get it ready for the handles. So my handles are contrasting in purple. This is actually the color of my smallest basket. And for this particular basket, we're going to measure over again to make space for the handles. Again, using our trusty Choco marker. So we want to come over 5 inches to begin with and mark. And then 9 inches from the edge, from the opposite edge there, and mark. And we want to come up from the bottom 1.5 inches. And in between those two lines, I'm going to mark that. And then I'm going to repeat the procedure on the other side. Turn my ruler around here. So in 5 inches, in 9 inches, and up 1.5 inches. That's as difficult as it gets, you guys. And it goes very quickly from here. So what I'm going to do next is take my straps, and you notice that they don't fit in there. That's purposeful, so that you can lift up and get your fingers in there when you pick up your basket. So I'm just going to sew on my previous sew lines. If you've forgotten how to do the nifty little straps, go back to the Stash and Dash and watch Annie's video on how to make the straps. So I'm going to sew these on, and I am going to back stitch or fix stitch at both ends so that they don't come loose. So let me get that done and I'll be right back. Okay, I have my little straps on and I have my little label on, and you can just rub the chalk off after that if you want to. There'll be some underneath there, but you can just put your fingers in there and get rid of it. So, and then we have these cute little straps. Now we're going to take this and turn it into a tube by putting the ends together. We're going to sew at 5/8 of an inch, and if you remember, there's 1/2 inch of fabric at the end. So you're going to be over onto your soft unstable just a tiny bit there. So let's make that seam. And I'm going to back stitch just to lock it. Remember how we used to make garments? We did used to make garments, right? And we're going to sew that into a tube. And I'm going to back stitch at the other end. And now we have a tube, and I am just going to finger press this open. You can take it to your iron if you want to, but you know, it's on the inside and it doesn't matter if it's nice and tidy, and all we want to do is get it out of the way. So I'm just going to finger press it down. That worked pretty well. And then I am going to fold right sides together, or wrong sides together. And this will be the height of the basket. And all of my gimgauze are on the inside there. All I have here is the outside, or the inside, what will be the inside of the basket. I'm going to use my clips again to hold it. Trying to get it even there so that I don't end up with a big bubble somewhere. And if you get it lined up right, it should be just fine. You can tell already how sturdy this is going to be. So once I get it all clipped, I'm going to go ahead and sew it at an 1/8 of an inch, or just a scad over. You don't want to go over 1/4, because if you do, you're going to be into your seam and you'll see it when it's finished. So I'm going to sew all the way around. If you want to use your free arm on your machine, hey, this is a wonderful place to do it. But these are really big enough, you can scooch them underneath there. So I'm just going to sew through, and then I'm going to show you how to finish the edge. Okay, I've sewn around one time, and you can notice that it's really fluffy here. We're going to be working with lots of layers of Soft and Stable, so we want to both finish the edges so that we don't have little hairs on the inside of our basket, and we also want to compress this so that it's easier to sew. So to do that, we're going to use an overlock stitch. On my machine, it means using an overlock foot, which looks kind of like this. And I have to set my machine on overlock, so I'm going to attach the foot. This is a Janome 5200. So if you have exactly the same model of machine I do, you're going to change it to mode 2 and put in number 13, and that will be your overlock stitch. And now I'm going to re-sew over that edge by putting the edge next to the little fence here. It works just like a little 1/4 inch foot. And I am going to sew all the way around, and my little auto thing is telling me that it's on the run here. So let's just do that overlock stitch. And you can probably see that it's sort of a wide zigzag, and then it, I would say, wraps around itself over the edge to hold in the little hairs. So I'm going to go as fast as I can here. And this takes a few minutes, so I'm going to finish and be right back. Alright, so I've gone all the way around, and you can see it looks like the inside of a t-shirt, kind of. And it has completely compressed the edges and gone over the edge so that I don't have fraying on the inside of my basket. I think that the top would look better with a little bit of decorative stitching around the top. So all I'm going to do is go around the top at 1/4 of an inch to top stitch and make it look pretty. So again, I use my fixed stitch. I use that most of the time. And then I'm just going to take off and sew around. I've gone back to my regular foot, which no matter what I'm doing, I pretty much leave my 1/4 inch foot on if I can. If I'm doing applique, obviously I'm using a different stitch, but And I'm still using my purple thread because, yay, purple. Gotta love purple thread now. I think purple and green is a gorgeous combination. My third quilt that I ever made was purple and green. Oh my gosh, was it wonky. Do a fixed stitch at the end. And I just think that looks a little neater than having that fluffy top at the top, and I think it might be a little bit sturdier too. So now we have the body done, and you can tell that it's still inside out. Here's my handles, here's my little vinyl label holder. So now I'm going to work on the circle. I swear it's not scary. So you've got two 10-inch squares of your soft and stable and two 10-inch squares. Again, this is the medium of your fabric, and you're going to make what looks like a completed quilt sandwich. So right there's the fabric facing the soft and stable. You're looking at the good side of the fabric, and two layers of soft and stable, and then a layer of soft and stable on top. And then this is my pattern, and this is B1, and I am using, I'm an outlier here, I'm using parchment paper, and when I get done you're going to see why. So I've just folded and traced the pattern onto the parchment paper, and I'm only pinning through the top layer of fabric. It's a little too far in to use the wonder clips on this one. And then I am going to sew at 1/8 of an inch into the paper. So I will be sewing through all layers and on top of the paper with just a regular straight stitch and about 1/8 of an inch in, not a quarter. But it, you know, as before, it just needs to be less than a quarter because you don't want your stitching to show on the outside. So I'm just helping my machine turn it around there, and I am sewing right on the paper. Sometimes when I've been doing this, I've noticed there's so many layers that it wants to just sort of grab the fabric. So sometimes I have to stop, especially when I'm at the edge, and flatten out the fabric again as I go. So I'm back around at 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to move my foot about 1/8 of an inch on the outside and sew again. This is going to make it really easy for me to cut on the line because it's going to compress the soft and stable so that I can get my scissors in there and cut real well. I'm not as careful with the fabric at this point because it doesn't really matter if it's wrinkled outside of it. I'm just going to cut all that off. And I'm going to find a pair of scissors. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like things walk around in my place. Does that happen to you? I'm sure not. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut right on the line. It'll be easier to cut now because we've sewn on the edge. And I'm just cutting right outside of that paper. If I cut through the stitching that's on the outside, I don't even care because that's all throwaway. So if I got too close, doesn't matter. All right. The outside of that is throwaway, and then I rip the parchment paper and it comes right off. I suppose I like parchment so well because I started as a garment sewer when I was very young. So at this point in time, we're going to put the overlock foot back on, and we're going to overlock all the way around the circle. So I'll do that and I'll be right back to show you how to fit it. Okay, as you can see, I have the bottom of the bag done, and if you don't want to finish it at this point, you've got a great frisbee, right? So the next thing I want to do is to mark the bottom and the bag in halves with pins. So all I'm doing is folding it in half and inserting a pin, and for this, it's the body of it itself, there is a seam right there, so let's mark that one. And then let's fold it in half and mark the other side. Now I'm going to line up those pins. I'm kind of picky about which side I want on the inside here. And I'm just going to kind of tuck that bottom into the top. And once I have the pins lined up, I'm going to use my Wonder Clips again. Take out all the pins. And I can put a Wonder Clip in the middle of each side, making sure that everything's lined up there. It's amazing that it fits, but it does. It always does, and it looks so good when it's done. So now I'm going to go halfway on this side and tuck it down in there. It does take a little bit of manipulation, but it's not hard. These are pretty big, so it's not like curved piecing on a quilt. Although if you know the tricks, you can do curved piecing too, and it's just fine. Alright, we're all clipped now, and I need to go back to my regular foot. So we're all done overcasting, and the overlock stitch has compressed the edges so your machine doesn't fight it so much when you sew. Then you're going to put the bottom down. Peek inside to make sure that the opening of your vinyl tag is to the top there. And I just kind of squish it out of the way, line up the edges, and go in with a generous 1/4 of an inch so that none of your stitching shows. So instead of a scant anything, we're going to do a generous 1/4 of an inch, and that will make sure that all of your overlock stitches and all of your basting stitches at 1/8 of an inch don't show. I will tell you that you're going to need a lot of thread to do the overlock stitch on your baskets. So make sure and have a new spool of whatever color that you're using. And if you're doing all 3, it may actually even take 2 because there is a lot of stitching on this. So I'm squishing the sides of the basket down as I go. I've got my needle down so I don't walk off the edge any. And I'm doing a generous 1/4 of an inch. If you have a Janome, lucky for you, this machine has not said a peep about going through all these layers. Almost back around. Alright, here's where the magic happens. So as you can see, it's sewn all the way around, and I sewed with the bottom of the basket next to the bed of the machine. Now I'm going to turn it right side out. Oh my gosh, is this fun or what? I'm probably not going to press it. I'm just using my fingers to get in there and shove out the seam. It's so stiff it wants to be out anyway. So look at that. There's the bottom of your basket. Okay, so we're going to do the top now, and guess what? We are going to do the very same procedure we did before. So this is the ring that goes around, and it is slightly bigger than your basket. And the circle that goes in this means that is slightly bigger too. So this is the medium basket, so we'll be using B2, which is the bigger circle. So the first thing I'm going to do is sew down the sides with a straight stitch just like we did on the basket, only now I don't have to put on the vinyl or the handles because those are on the basket themselves, not on the top. And then I'll sew it into a ring, and then I'll fold it in half and sew the long sides with the wrong sides together. And then compress the edges using that overlock stitch. So let me get the ring done and I'll be right back. Again, this is the very same procedure, so if you've forgotten, just go back to the directions for the beginning and start again. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so now I have the ring of the lid done. See, it's going to go like this, only there's going to be a top to it. And as you can see, I have top stitched the top. I just think that it looks better. Well, actually, that's going to be the bottom, like that. And I've folded it in half, sewn, and done the overlock stitch on the edge. So now we have the rim of the lid, or perhaps we have a crown for somebody with a really large head, or a hula hoop for somebody with a really small waist, one of the two. So now I'm going to go ahead with the circle the same way that we did before, only this time I'm using B2, which is a bigger circle for the top. And I have my fabric, 2 layers of Soft and Stable, the top layer of fabric, and then I'm just pinning on the circle, and I'm going to sew right at 1/8 of an inch to the inside of the circle and 1/8 of an inch to the outside of the circle. And then I'll cut and do the overlock stitch on the edge so that it compresses that side. So let me get that done and I'll show you how to finish up this project. Okay, here I am again with all of this good stuff to put back together just the same way we did before. So the first thing I'm going to do is mark each of them, both the frisbee and the crown. In the center, there we go. And then this as well, and I'm going to start with the back seam, if I can find it. There it is. And then I'm going to match those up and start working with the clips to get it clipped into place. And then just like last time, we're going to put the base down like this to sew. It'll be a little easier this time because the sides aren't so high, so you don't have to fight with the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and get this put together, and then I'll show you the final result. All right, last little bit here. So you can see that I've finished my babushka. Okay, so I've just finished the lid really, but you can tell that it has the overlock stitch all the way around, and then I've just sewed it 1/4 of an inch so it's nice and solid. Now I'm going to turn it right side out, and I'm just going to push the seam through. I'm not really going to press it. Oh my gosh, isn't that cute? So there. Hey, let's turn the back to the back there. There is the medium-sized nesting basket. And there's the small. So you're going to continue on with the small and the small and the large. The easiest one to do probably is the medium because it's not as tight as the small one and it's not as big as the big one, but this is very doable even for a novice sewer, so why don't you just get to it? And then next month we'll be doing ditty bags, so stay tuned for that and refer back to this video whenever you need a little hand. Yay!